John, chapter 3, verses 16 and 17, revisited. If there is one Bible verse that every child who ever attended an evangelical Sunday school is sure to know, that verse is John 3:16. What child encountering this verse for the first time, without a Calvinist teacher, would conclude that world did not mean the whole world of mankind, but a limited number of individuals chosen by God? None would, of course. Calvin himself, in his commentary on John 3:16, stated that world included all men without exception. Luther also said it meant the entire human race. But White, realizing that such an admission does away with limited atonement, manages a desperate end run around John 3:16. He suggests that sound exegesis requires that whosoever believeth on him should not perish, actually means, in order that everyone believing in him should not perish. That slight twist allows White to suggest that Calvinism's elect alone believe, God having caused them to do so, and thus Christ died only for them. Even if that were true, Calvinism would still have to explain, in view of its insistence that men must be born again before God can give them faith, how eternal life can be received without faith. Surely, sovereign regeneration is not to temporary life. That question will be considered under irresistible grace. To prevent such twisting of his word, Christ himself explains this passage unequivocally. And as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so must the Son of Man be lifted up, that whosoever believeth on him should not perish, but have eternal life. John chapter 3, verses 14 and 15. There is no question that just as the law and the entire Levitical sacrificial system were for all Israel, 2 Chronicles chapter 29, verse 24, and Ezra chapter 6, verse 17, Malachi chapter 4, verse 4, etc., so was God's provision of the upraised serpent. Every one, any man, when he beheld the serpent of brass, he lived. Numbers chapter 21, verses 8 and 9. In one look of simple faith, healing flowed to each and every Israelite without exception. The precise connection Christ reveals between this Old Testament type and his crucifixion for sin, as Moses lifted up the serpent, so must the Son of Man be lifted up, cannot be escaped. That whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life, is a promise for all. Every Old Testament type of the cross was for every Israelite. There was no special elect among them to whom alone the Passover, manna, water out of the rock, the Day of Atonement, or general offerings for sin applied. Significantly, any check of the list of scriptures used in Calvinist books will reveal an avoidance of references to Old Testament types of Christ and his sacrifice on the cross. The reason needs no explanation. Like most other apologists for Calvinism, White avoids John chapter 3, verses 14 and 15, and doesn't even attempt to deal with the unequivocal statement in chapter 3, verse 17, that the world through him might be saved, to which his explanation of John 3:16 couldn't possibly apply. Obviously, this further comment by Christ explains the meaning of the entire section, John chapter 3, verses 14 to 18, pertaining to his death on the cross, making it very clear that God gave his Son for the salvation of the entire world. Nor does White quote Calvin or anyone else concerning John chapter 3, verse 17. None of the 13 contributors to Still Sovereign touches it. We deal with this in more depth in chapter 27. Of course, White's interpretation of John 3:16 must agree with his argument that 1 John chapter 2 verse 2 couldn't possibly mean that Christ's death is a satisfaction for the whole world. He justifies that view by the fact that John goes on to tell us not to love the world. How does the fact that we are not to love the world prove that Christ did not die for the sins of the whole world? Obviously, John is using world in two different ways: the people of the world and the world system. Recognizing that fact, White rightly declares that in 1 John chapter 2 verse 15, world means the present evil system, not the universal population of mankind. White is now caught in a web of his own making. If the fact that the world in verse 15 means the present evil system refutes the claim that in verse 2 it means all the people of the world, why would it not also refute White's view that it means all Christians throughout the world, at all times, and in all places? There is no way to escape the straightforward meaning in 1 John chapter 2 verse 2. World means all unsaved mankind.